Om Gangadipataye Namaha. Namaste. And welcome to another episode of Essence of Dharma. And today we're really going to talk about the essence of Dharma. Last time we were discussing Vedic knowledge and how Vedanta means the end, the conclusion, the final judgment of Vedic knowledge. And Vedānta-sūtras, written by Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas, the editor of the Upanishads and the Brahmanas and so on, so many Vedic literatures. If anybody ought to know what is the final conclusion of Vedas, it would be him. And what does he say? Athāto brahma-jijñāsā. Athāto. Athāto. Now, therefore, brahma-jijñāsā, let us inquire into Brahman. What does this mean? It's deep. Now, after all the four Vedas, after all the 108 Upanishads, after all the hundreds and hundreds of yogas and brahmanas and tantras and itihasas and whatever, the whole Vedic literature, now, therefore, in other words, because of all that that's gone before, this is the conclusion. Brahma-jijñāsā, inquiry into Brahman. What does he mean, inquiry? He means knowledge. Yes, you have to have some knowledge. Somebody has to clue you in. I mean, the very word Upanishad means upa ani sat. Come here, come close, sit down, and hear the truth. So, if you come to a realized being, someone who knows, a jnani, it doesn't mean intellectual knowledge, although it may begin from there. He may describe the path in terms of words and symbols that we can understand. But the final aim is Brahman. And Brahman is indescribable, inconceivable. Why? Well, you can read all the quotes in the blog post. I link to the blog post in the description of this video. I'm not going to read out all the quotes here. It would be boring. But basically, Brahman is one without a second. And it is conscious, but not conscious of something. Its consciousness is without an object. This is very difficult. Very, very difficult to understand. It is without qualities, without limits or boundaries. One without a second means there's no other thing that can compare with it. It has no activities, no location, no movement, no desires, no will, etc., etc., etc. In other words, it's just beyond everything that we think of to be existent. It is beyond existence and non-existence, being and non-being, time and space. Brahman is pure transcendence. And that transcendence is actually our self. We are nothing but Brahman. Yet we have forgotten. We've become entangled in this world of pleasure and pain, good and bad, birth and death, black and white, up and down, duality. And because of that, we have lost our center, lost our foundation, lost our roots in Brahman. So we're lost. And the purpose of the yoga path, the purpose of the Vedas, the purpose of self-realization or yoga is to bring us back to bring us back to Brahman. And in order to do that, various methods are prescribed. And we talked last time about how they're generally or broadly divided into karma yoga, bhakti yoga, raja yoga, and jnana yoga. So these 4 classes of methods, out of the 4, jnana yoga is the actual yoga. And the other 3, karma yoga, bhakti yoga, and raja yoga, are the preliminary methods to make us ready for actual yoga. Because as we said last time, yoga means to connect, to hook things up. And what are we doing in yoga? We are hooking up the individual soul with the super soul, the individual living being with Brahman. So this process is really a one-step process. It's actually a no-step process. I know this is hard to understand. It was for me too, until I experienced it. Now it's like so obvious. Oh my God, how could anybody miss it? But I missed it. And I know everybody else has been in that same boat. So I'm going to try to explain step by step. Athāto. So now, after going through all these other methods of yoga, all these other Vedas and Upanishads, and all of their different recommendations for religious actions and so on, now that the foundation has been built, now that all the preliminaries have been satisfied, athāto, brahma-jijñāsā, let us inquire. So this inquiry is not simply research into the Vedas. It is an experience. It is a quest into the self within. And that means really before we can do this, we have to drop all of our attachments to the external world. If we try to maintain our ego, our social standing, our membership down at the club, all these attachments, all these possessions, all these designations of who I think I am, my ego, my name, my form, my identity, my activities in the world, all this stuff that we think of as myself, but which is not myself at all. As long as we maintain those things, we cannot really inquire into Brahman. Why? Because the mind is going to keep moving outward through the senses. And what is the mind moving outward through the senses? It is consciousness. Consciousness is always consciousness of something. And the Buddha boils it down to 6 things: sight, sound, smell, taste, touch, and the mind, thoughts. So because we are always conscious of these different things through the senses. Therefore, we lose our root, we lose our center. We forget who we really are. And we go chasing after these things in the world, running like an idiot after these things which are always changing, always disappearing. They're always getting worn down and dying, being transformed into something else other than what we want. That's why there's always this kind of a frantic feeling around desire, like, oh, I got to get it now. Why? Because it's going to disappear. The whole material world has a tendency towards dissolution and death. Nothing in this world is forever. Even the entire world itself is created, stays for some time, although it may be a very, very long time. Finally, it's dissolved and disappears. And there goes a long span, actually an immeasurable span of time without the creation. And then again, Brahman creates. This is all described in the Vedas. I don't have to tell you. You can look it up. It's in the books. It's been translated into English. Do your homework. Don't be lazy. Don't make me have to tell you everything. I just have time to tell you the important things. And even that's going to take hundreds of videos. So the real thing is to get rid of all these attachments. And that's why you can read at the bottom of the blog post. Adi Shankaracharya gave a list of basically 4 qualifications for brahma-jijñāsā. And really all they're saying is, don't be attached. Drop it. Let it go. Don't care. Don't go out into the world. Don't be attached. But turn inwards. Introvert yourself. And search out that self, who I am. This cannot be done by anybody else but you. I remember when it hit me, when I discovered this for myself. I was sitting on a park bench in Mexico City, and I'd been writing books and making websites and videos and stuff about self-realization. This was back in, 2005, maybe January, February. It was a nice sunny afternoon. I was walking in the park. Very nice parks in Mexico City. And I was contemplating consciousness. What is this consciousness? How is it possible that the soul, which is only consciousness and only conscious, can even be related to this material world? What to speak of being conscious of it? I was contemplating along these lines, and I began to be very blissful. Even though I didn't reach any answers. It's not like I reached any conclusions. I was just asking these questions about myself, actually. I began to feel very, very blissful. So this is the process of self-inquiry. Ramana Maharshi got it down to the most simple. Who am I? Who am I? What am I? Apart from this body, this mind, my possessions, the world, and all this other stuff. Who am I? And I'm going to include a link in the blog post to Ramana's little booklet by the same title. And I hope you read it. You'll get a lot out of it. It's highly recommended. Om Tat Sat. Aung Harihi Aung.